Deeper Learning Series number 4 on elections. It's almost that time of the PTA season where we're starting to elect our new officers for the board for the upcoming school year. I know it feels like we're only halfway through this term, but we're already thinking about the next one. So tonight, I am here as the council president, and we have our brand new council parliamentarian.
That's me, Christy Sempronio.
Yay, we're so excited that Christy's here. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to get this PowerPoint going and we will get everything started. There we go. All right. So Deeper Learning Series number 4 on elections. We are so glad that you are here tonight. Our agenda for the evening is we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves, and then we're going to go through what happens before your election meeting, the day of your election meeting, what happens in the actual election meeting, immediately following the election meeting, and then some things to expect for the new elected board. And we will be able to answer questions during this, or if you want to email myself or Christy, our email addresses can be found on scvpta.org. So just a little bit about ourselves. I'm Heather Ippolito, the council president, and my true PTA passion is parliamentary procedure. I love all things bylaws and Robert's rules. I have served as a unit parliamentarian, council parliamentarian, district parliamentarian. I was on the bylaws committee at state, so this is one of my areas of expertise. And I am finishing up my second term as council president this year. So I am excited to finish the year strong. All right, Miss Christy, what's going on?
With me, Christy Sempronio, I am newly appointed council parliamentarian. This is my first council position. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm very excited to learn, help anybody, help as much as I can, meet new people. I've been on my unit board in various smaller positions for the last probably 4 years now, and I am just happy to be here and to do what I can to help.
And Christy is a Jill of all trades. She goes to as much training as possible. She's never been the secretary, but I think she sat in on that training once. So she is a wealth of PTA knowledge.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. All right, was this the one that I'm doing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I've already forgotten it. We just talked about this 20 minutes. So before the election meeting, this is stuff that you can start. Some of it should have already been started, and some of it for you presidents and parliamentarians, you can be starting right now. So hopefully at this point, you have elected a nominating committee. And if you have not yet done that, I beg of you to do it at your January meeting. You must elect a nominating committee. Do not select one. It has to be elected at an association meeting. And we did a whole webinar on that back in November. So if you missed that webinar, don't worry. It's on our scvpta.org page. You can go watch the whole thing. You can fast forward and rewind if you missed something. So I encourage you to go learn all that you can about nominating committee from our last webinar. The slate of candidates, which is a fancy word of a fancy way of saying the list of candidates, needs to be published for at least 28 days prior to your election. So look at your bylaws, see when your election meeting is, and then go 28 days prior to that. When we say published, it can be presented at an association meeting if you have one that's 28 days or more prior to your election and your slate is ready. It could be put up on your website or on your Facebook page, and it really should be posted somewhere on campus. So if you have a PTA bulletin board or the office window or something where parents can see who the candidates are that the nominating committee has selected. You need to advertise your meeting to let your association know that this is going to be the election meeting, whether it's in March or April. Some of you have it late February. Let your association know. Send out those flyers. Ask your principal to include it in the weekly call or put it in your newsletter. But we really need to get the word out that there is an election happening. Your secretary should actually always have ballots on hand. That is part of their job description, but your parliamentarian or your secretary should make sure that there are ballots. And the reason why ballots is in quotes is because you don't necessarily have to type up something with people's names on them. A ballot can be something like a 3x5 card, or in a pinch, a Post-it note. What I always did when I was the parliamentarian was I took scratch paper and cut it into, just when they make mistakes in the copy room at school, and I would just quarter it. So I would just cut it into 4 pieces, and those would be my ballots. And I had them with me all the time because anyone can call for a ballot vote at any time in any meeting. So you always need to have them on hand. It is highly recommended that you invite the candidates to the election meeting. And it's also a really good idea to invite the members of your nominating committee as well, as at least the chair of the nominating committee, because they do have a part in the script to play. You need to contact your membership chair and get a membership list that cuts off 30 days before the election, because only people who have been members for 30 days are eligible to vote or to run from the floor. So you need to make sure you have that list handy. So all the membership chairs should be handing to their president, or make sure that they have in their binder a copy of that membership list that cuts off 30 days before your election meeting. And presidents, when you're setting your agenda for the election meeting, we suggest that you place the election more toward the beginning of the meeting. Come in, do your Pledge of Allegiance, do your secretary's report and your treasurer's report, but you might want to hold your election pretty quickly after that. And the reason being, if you have to take a vote, those things take time, because the vote happens and then the count happens and then they come back and announce the results. So you don't want people just sitting there waiting for you to finish. So if you can continue to move the meeting forward while the counting is happening, it makes everybody feel like they're, getting more out of the meeting. All right, Christy, the day of the elections, what happens?
Day of the elections, that's me. Okay, you want to make sure that you come to your meeting prepared. So make sure you have copies of your scripts for your president and parliamentarian. Also, if for whatever reason your president and parliamentarian can't be there, someone is going to have to read those scripts. So make sure you have copies. Have a copy of your slate on hand so that your nominating committee chair can read off of it. Make sure you have your bylaws handy, because you will be reading from them.
That's my favorite part of the whole election process. Is when we read the bylaws.
And she's not kidding. If you have a chance, read through it beforehand, just so that you're a little better prepared for your meeting. And again, confirm that you have your membership list that's from at least 30 days ago.
And even if your membership chair can't be there, that list still needs to be there, which is why we say get that printed early and make sure that it's in the president's binder, or that the parliamentarian has a copy of it. Just make sure that it exists somewhere. All right, so it is the moment of truth. It is your association meeting where the election is going to take place. Now, only people who have been members for 30 days get to vote. And actually, in your meetings, this isn't just for new officers. This is really for anything. any PTA vote can only be done by someone who's been a PTA member for 30 days. Also, technically, only someone who's been a member for 30 days is allowed to debate or discuss or any of those good things. So it's always a good idea to kind of get into this habit if you haven't. But when people sign in, you give them some sort of a voting card. It could be a stamp on their hand. It could be a sticker on their shirt. It could be a little 3x5 card that they hold up to vote. Or if you know that you're going, if your nominating committee already put more than one person into a category, then you can just hand them a ballot right when they walk in. Make sure you have quorum. You cannot conduct your elections without it. If you don't have quorum, you have to call an emergency association meeting, and you don't want to do that. So that's why we say advertise. Make sure that you let everybody know, and make sure that you have quorum whenever your election meeting is, whether it's in the morning or the evening. Make sure that you can get those people there. And again, check your bylaws to find out what your quorum is. Read the script. It's going to sound a little redundant, and you're going to feel slightly ridiculous sometimes because you feel like I've already said this 3 times, but it is the process. And it makes sure that you are checking all the boxes and doing everything properly. If someone contests your election, one of the first questions I'm going to ask you when I contact you is, did you follow the script? And if you're hemming and hawing, then I'm not going to be happy. So just so you can kind of hear how this sounds, Christy and I are going to actually go through the script right now. We will have copies of this for you at our council association meeting in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. So we will have copies of this for you. You can also find it on capta.org, capta.org, or you can Google script for elections, California PTA, and it will pop up. Or you can email me and I will email it to you. All right, so the chair of the meeting, which is typically going to be your president, stands up, and I will be playing the role of the president tonight. Christy will be playing our parliamentarian and our nominating committee chairperson. So the president will stand up and say, "We will now conduct our elections. Will the parliamentarian please read the sections of the bylaws pertaining to elections?"
Yes, I will. Article 5, Officers and their election. Section 1. Each officer or board member of this association shall be a member of this association. Section 2. Officers of this association shall be a president, executive vice president, 2 vice presidents, secretary, treasurer, auditor, historian, and parliamentarian. These officers shall be elected annually with the exception of the parliamentarian, who shall be appointed by the president subject to the ratification of the executive board. Section 3. Nominations for office shall be made by a nominating committee, which shall be elected by the association. The nominating committee shall be elected at least 2 months prior to the annual election meeting. The committee shall serve until the annual election meeting. The nominating committee shall be composed of 3 members with 2 alternates, all of whom shall be members of this association. The principal of the school or a faculty representative appointed by the principal, if not an elected member of the committee, shall serve in an advisory capacity. The president.
And side note really quickly, that is just the numbers for this particular unit. Your unit might have different numbers for your nominating committee, but this is just in the sample that we're using. They had 3 elected and 2 alternates. So sorry.
That's okay. And there's a couple other places going forward. The month will vary by school and a couple of the sections, and there's a couple dates that will be unit specific. Okay. The president shall not serve ex officio or be elected to the nominating committee. The committee shall elect its own chairman. No member shall serve on the nominating committee for 2 consecutive years. Immediately upon its election, the parliamentarian shall meet with the nominating committee to set the date of its first meeting. Alternates shall not attend meetings unless an elected member cannot be present at the first meeting. In that event, the alternate becomes the permanent member, replacing the elected member until such time as the committee is discharged of its duties at the time of the election. The report of the nominating committee shall be submitted to the membership at least 28 days prior to the annual election meeting. At the annual election meeting in March, additional nominations must be called from the floor. Section 4. The privilege of holding office shall be limited to members of the association whose dues are paid and who have been members of the association for at least 30 days previous to nomination. Individuals who are current members in any PTA or PTSA school in good standing must pay dues to this association upon nomination to office in order to qualify as members at the time of election. Section 5. Only those persons who are eligible and who have signified their consent to serve if elected shall be nominated for or elected to office. Almost done. Maybe. Nominees for the offices of president, treasurer, auditor, and any elected officer authorized to sign checks shall not be related by blood or marriage or reside in the same household. Section 6. Election shall be held by ballot at the annual election meeting in March. If there is but one nominee for any office, the ballot for that office may be dispensed with and the election held by voice vote. Section 7. Officers shall serve for 1 year or until their successors are elected. In the event that no successor is elected, the position is declared vacant. Vacant positions must be filled by the executive board elect or executive board per Article 5, Section 10 and Section 11. No officer shall be eligible to the same office for more than 2 consecutive terms or hold more than 1 elected or appointed office. Officers shall assume their duties on July 1st. No officer shall serve past the start of the next term unless elected to serve in that term. A person who has served in an office for more than 6 months of a full term shall be deemed to have served a full term in such office.
And at this point, you pause for the raucous applause for the bylaws, the hoots and hollers. Everybody gets so excited when the bylaws are done. Or is that just at my meetings? Okay. So then the president continues. Will the chairman of the nominating committee please present the committee report?
Okay. Now I get to be the chairman. And again, I'm reading off of the report of the nominating committee slate, and it states, the nominating committee met on date to consider all eligible candidates for, and then you put in your year term of office. On behalf of the nominating committee, I present the following slate of officers for the association's consideration. Then you run down your list, your position with your name. President, we have Mrs. Smith. EVP, we have Mrs. Jones. Down your list. And you also want to make sure down here at the bottom, it says signatures of nominating committee. Make sure you have that signed off by your nominating committee.
And the chair usually reads who is on the nominating committee just so everybody is aware. So they would say this report is presented on behalf of myself and Mickey Mouse and Daisy Duck and, whoever was on the nominating committee. All right. So the president then says, thank you. And now the president takes that slate paper from the chairman and rereads it. And while they reread it, they ask the people whose names are on the slate to stand. So for president, the nominating committee has chosen or has suggested Mrs. Smith. So Mrs. Smith would stand. We would all look for her. And then after you've gone through EVP, Mrs. Jones has stood, everything, you would say, according to our bylaws, nominations from the floor are now in order. For president, Mrs. Smith is nominated. Are there any further nominations from the floor? And at this point, you pause and you look around the room and you see if anybody else is going to step forward to throw their hat in the ring for president. If no one puts their hand up, then you say, seeing none, the nominations for president are closed. So at this point, whoever is on your slate, they are the only candidate moving forward. If someone nominates from the floor, now you have multiple candidates. Let's say that you close the office of president and then 3 minutes later somebody comes in, they were late and now they want to be for the office of president. It's too late. The nominations from the floor are closed. So then you move on to vice president. Mrs. Jones has been nominated for vice president. Are there any further nominations from the floor? And you keep going until you've reached the end of your officer list. Then the president goes back through and says, for president, we have, I'm sorry, okay. I got ahead of myself. Sorry. If there are no nominations from the floor, or the slate, the people on the slate, there's only one for each. Even if somebody got nominated from the floor, there's still only one person in each office. Then you say, as there are single candidates for each office, we will conduct the election by voice vote, which means that you will say all those in favor. But you have to ask, is there any objection to this procedure? And you wait for a second. If nobody objects, then you say, all those in favor of electing Mrs. Smith as president, Mrs. Jones as EVP, Mr. Lopez as our EVP of membership, and you keep going down the list, say aye. And then you wait for the association to say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Congratulations, you have elected the following officers. And then you read them one more time and have them stand again, and now you're done. If, let's say, 2 people throw their hat in the ring to be president, Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones, we cannot do a voice vote for that. We have to do a ballot. And we're going to walk you through that process really quickly. But before we do, we just want to remind you
that we do take nominations from the floor. As you heard in the script, you can take nominations from the floor, and you have to open it up to the floor and ask if there are any nominees. Remember that they do need to be members for at least the last 30 days.
And that's really important, because if there's someone who's disgruntled, they can't come in that night, join, and run. They have to have been disgruntled and joined 30 days ago. They can't just do it right now. Okay. So we've already talked about the voice vote. That is the easiest, obviously. But sometimes, and way to go you, if you get more than one person to want to, serve your PTA in a position. So if there's more than one candidate, you have to have a ballot, and you have to use a ballot. Again, remember, I'm not talking about something printed with names on it. 3x5 card, Post-it note, scratch paper, all those things would be great. There is a very detailed explanation of what happens if there's a ballot vote on the script that you're going to receive from us at the council meeting. But the first thing that has to happen is the chair of the meeting, who's the president, has to appoint tellers. And basically what tellers are is they are the ballot distributors and the ballot counters. They need to be 3 different people. One person should be from your executive board, and then the other 2 should just be from the association. They may not be a person whose name is on the ballot. Mm. If you know now that you are going to have more than one candidate, or you believe that people are going to nominate from the floor, if you would like to invite council to your election, we can be appointed one of the tellers or 2 of the tellers, and we can help with this process. It is a little bit there is a lot of labor to it. And so if you've never done it before, but you know it's going to happen, we would be happy to come in and help. We've done it in the past. Sue Solomon and I, gosh, I think we counted one year probably 600 ballots in one school. It was a ton because they had multiple people for a lot of different offices. So that was a really fun year. But anyway, so the chair will appoint the tellers. They will say my historian is a teller because they have a 6th grade child and they won't be here next year. And then pick, maybe a primary parent and an upper grade parent to help them out. Don't pick your best friends. That looks, fishy. Like I said, don't pick anyone whose name is on the ballot. That's just not a good idea. The tellers, what they're going to do is they are going to pass out the ballots to the eligible voters, which is why it's helpful to have those either little stickers or the stamps on their hands so that they know who is eligible to vote. And they count the ballots as they hand them out, because you need to make sure that the number of ballots you hand out are the same number that you get back, especially if you're using something, super secret, like a scratch piece of paper. Anybody could pull something out of their purse or pocket and use it. So you need to make sure that you have counted. We put out 100 ballots and we got back 100 ballots. You may choose to have each candidate say something about themselves. I would give them no more than 1 minute, especially if a bunch of people came up off the floor. It's always a good idea to just let the voters make an informed decision by hearing the qualifications of, the said individuals. So, but that again is the chairperson's prerogative as to whether or not they give them a moment to speak or not. So the tellers have now passed out the ballots. The tellers know how many ballots are out, and then the tellers go collect the ballots. They go to a secure location, so whether that's the next room over, whether that's outside, if you're in your NPR, maybe they go into the kitchen or something like that, but they go in there and they count. Now, there is a voting report that will actually need to go in your minutes. And like I said, this is all in the script we're going to give you. It's going to include the number of members eligible to vote, the number of votes cast, the number needed to elect, so it's a majority, the name of the nominee, how many votes they received, and all of those things, just write them on a piece of paper. They need to go in your minutes. They do not have to be announced, but they do need to be in your minutes. So every time you have more than one person for an office, you will need to do a separate ballot. So if there are 2 people for the president, you would do a ballot for that. The tellers would go count. They would come back in, give the chair a note that says which of the people have been elected. Then you would go to the next office that has more than one person. Maybe it's the treasurer. There are 3 people for that. You would do the same process again, hand out the ballots, count how many there are, recollect the ballots. That's why we suggest that you do this early in your meeting, because sometimes it takes a while. All right. The results. Was this you or me, Christy? I don't remember.
This was you.
Okay, well, so if there's only one candidate, like I said, we've already announced. Congratulations, Mrs. Smith. You are now our secretary. If the ballot vote occurs, continue with the meetings while the tellers are counting. The tellers will give a note to the chair announcing the result of the ballot vote. The last thing the tellers need to do before they are dismissed is they need to make a motion to destroy the ballot. So one of the tellers would get the attention of the chair and say, I move to destroy the ballots. The association would vote yay for this. And then the teller who made the motion would take those ballots home and destroy them. The reason is we never dispose of ballots on the school campus, because should someone get upset and go try to look through the trash can to find them, what they might not realize is there might be a couple in this trash can, a couple over here, and a couple more there. One of them might have gotten wet from a juice box and disintegrated. So if they try to reconstruct the ballots, they might not find them all. So in your minutes, it says these are how many ballots were cast. These are how many ballots Mrs. Smith got and Mr. Jones and all these different people. The official record is part of your, part of your permanent record. So just take the ballots home and destroy them. All right. Whew. That was a lot. I think it's your turn.
It's a lot of good information. It is my turn. So immediately following the elections, you're going to congratulate your new officers and begin your transition process. You want to post your board-elect roster on your website, your newsletter. Again, on your campus, if you have a bulletin board, or like Heather had said, an office window somewhere where your parent population, your population can see your results. You want to get your new board's information entered into PTA Easy as soon as you can. This would be one of the final jobs of your current president, is to get your incoming board's information input. This is how anybody outside of your unit has can contact your incoming board. This is how your council, your state on up, this is how they know who is actually serving on your board. You don't need to have your own login to access this. You can contact, I think, Heather, and she'll be able to get you a temporary password to get those input onto the website.
And also, presidents, just so you know, while this is one of your final acts, if your election meeting happens in March, just input it in March. The information isn't going to change. So just get it done and cross that off your list. It is imperative that we have this information, because otherwise we at council, at the district level, at the state, can't contact you to let you know about training, or you can't get the summer mailers or any of those good things. So it's really, really important that you get that information from the board-elect and get it in as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Also, if you can, have your new officers shadow your current officers. Make time for them. If they have any questions, schedule times to sit down, meet, get together. Maybe invite them to an e-board meeting, or if you're the treasurer, you're going to the bank, invite them to the bank with you so they can get an idea of how things happen there. Anything that you can do is going to be much appreciated by your incoming board, I'm sure. Also, make sure that you have your procedure books and that they're updated, and that those are given to your new officers. That's also going to be a big help.
And just a reminder, procedure books, it sounds really fancy, but it's just the binder that each officer or chairperson has with all their notes in it, their flyers, the job description, all those things, so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel year after year, because nobody likes that. All right, so now you have a current board and you have a board-elect. And the confusing thing is that they can actually meet concurrently and independently. So your board that is already in place will continue meeting through the end of the school year, right up through June. And your new board can begin to meet anytime. The board-elect can start having their meetings. They should have quorum at their meetings and take minutes at their meetings, because those are part of the official record. The board-elect will need to meet to create a budget and a calendar to present to the association at the final meeting of the year. It is always suggested that the board-elect ask current members of the board, specifically the president and the treasurer, to help them with those tasks, because they are currently sitting in the middle of the budget. They are currently sitting in the middle of the calendar. And so they have some good insight to offer as to any modifications or changes that could be made, suggestions on, you might want to move this event away from this event, or you might want to put this fundraiser earlier in the school year because it did so well. Again, the board-elect can choose to ignore those suggestions, but it's always a good idea to hear from the people who are actually living it. The board-elect should also review the bylaws. Look through them, see if any changes need to be made, and if they do see something that needs to be changed, then they should send those into Christy, our council parliamentarian, before the end of the school year so that they can be sent up to state and go through all the proper channels and be back to the school for that first meeting of next year so that any changes that this new board wants to make can go into effect pretty quickly in the school year. Just a friendly reminder to the new board, you may not sign any contracts, spend any money, or add signatures to the bank account until your term officially begins on July 1st. Similarly, outgoing board, you may not sign any contracts on behalf of the incoming board. So you cannot encumber the new board with any contracts, fundraisers. You can't promise them Apex or anything else. So make sure that new board, you're not signing anything or spending anything until July 1st. And outgoing board, make sure that you're not giving them responsibilities that they have not agreed to. All right. We are at the question. I know that there are many of you online with us right now. My husband is just texting me. I was asking if there are any questions in the chat, and he said there are no questions right now. But now is the moment to ask if you have any questions. Remember that you can replay this anytime. We will be handing the script out at the Council Association meeting in 2 weeks, or you can Google it. We are happy to come help sit in, even if you don't think you're going to have a controversial election and you don't think that you're going to have a ballot. We can absolutely come sit in and help with your election. If you feel like you want someone there for support, you know how I feel about the bylaws, at least I'll be clapping for them. So I think I'm going to check my phone again and see if there are any more questions. All right, I think that that's everything. Christy, can you think of anything else we forgot to tell them?
No, I just wanted to double check. The association meeting is January 25th.
Yes.
It is at 6 p.m. and it is at Plum Canyon.
Yes. So we will have copies of the script available there for you if you don't already have them. We can also have some copies of the slate paperwork for you to take back to your unit just so you have it. Christy and I will both be at that meeting so we can answer any questions that you have. Gosh, well, we were so efficient tonight. We even did a whole election and we finished in way under an hour. All right. So thank you so much, those of you who joined us live. Thank you, Christy, for joining me as your first really official council act.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy. And again, share this link with anybody on your board who missed it, or go to the website, scvpta.org. You can watch it anytime there. It will be stored there for you. If you didn't already watch the Deeper Learning series on nominations, please go back and do that because it's really, really important that we get this right. I don't want to have to go in and redo anybody's election process because it's a big pain in the butt. So we don't want to do that. We want to get it right the first time so that everything can just transition to the next group. All right, so we will have another Deeper Learning series coming next month, so stay tuned for that. Like our Facebook page so that you can get up to date on all of the most recent council information. And I would like to thank you so much for joining us tonight. You guys have a good night, and we will see you at Plum Canyon.
Awesome. Good night. Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.